order the village meeting for Monday, March 25th, 2024. Say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Anybody have any additions to add to the agenda?
No, sir.
No, sir. Okay. Go right into public comment. Public comment. Anybody have anything? State your name and your business.
Hi, I am Nicole Draper. For those of you that don't know, I am here on behalf of Swanton Recreation today to talk about some things besides Corn Fest, which is on the agenda. I wanted first off to share with all of you that might not receive it is our upcoming April newsletter. So this just will give you a little bit about, I hope I made enough copies. I probably didn't, but Bill, I can get you one if I didn't. Some things that are going on at Swanton Rec. I also wanted to share, I'll give this one to you guys.
Oh, I can have this. Thank
This
you
is our
very much.
sponsorship
Appreciate
guide.
it.
If anybody here within the village is interested in sponsoring activities at the rec department and or campers, come summer season, as well as share it with your friends, neighbors, everybody else. So part of why I'm here is to talk about some of the upcoming events that we have. As the space is village property, we're looking to have permission for some upcoming things. The Abenaki tribe of the Missisquoi is looking to host their powwow Memorial Day weekend. They are looking to have permission to have a ceremonial fire. According to the village ordinance, we have to ask you guys for permission, so we are here asking for permission for that. They're also looking to have 10 campsites down in our lower field, as they have folks traveling from outside of the area here for the event. They do have security for the event the day of. They are unsure of the attendance numbers as of yet, as this is something that they've done in the past, but it's been quite some time since they've done an event, so they're unsure if they're going to have 5 people come or 50 people come, or they're not thinking 5,000, but maybe 500. They also wanted me to request any other information that you folks are looking to have from them for those permissions.
This is like the powwow they used to have in the park.
Correct.
It's just going to be at the rec center
Correct.
instead. There's a lot more room.
Yes.
Okay.
Room, parking,
So
bathroom facilities.
do we have to talk to the fire marshal or the?
The only thing that, well, one thing I know that we would need is a certificate of liability.
Yep.
insurance from.
And they're gonna get that for the
From
event.
pocket.
Yep.
I make a motion to allow the Abenaki of Missisquoi to have a ceremonial fire and 10 campsites for their powwow on Memorial Day weekend.
And I'll second.
Thank you. They will be.
All yay, yay. Okay,
Aye.
motion
Okay.
accepted.
Thank you, they will be excited to hear that. Additionally, I would like to bring Chill back for skating at Marble Mill this summer. We have anticipated dates of July 11th, 18th, 25th, and August 1st. Again, they would provide a certificate of liability insurance for the event, but it would be Swanton Rec as their host organization this year and not the Abenaki of Missisquoi.
Could you provide the dates one more time, please?
Absolutely. July 11th, 18th, 25th, and August 1st. They would be 4 to 6, as we don't want to interrupt pickleball in that area. but we are very excited to be working with them to help young people find the love of skateboarding.
I was gonna say, what is it?
Yeah.
Skateboarding.
We did approve it last year, so how did that event go last year?
It was awesome.
It's been a couple of years, yeah, it's been really well
It's
attended.
been 2 years, and we already have kids chomping at the bit, wanting them to come back. Chill is a great program organized by Burton, and it helps kids find the love of board sports, but also supports building self-confidence and community.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah, no, it's great to see all that happen last year. Kids really look like they're enjoying it.
And these dates are on a Thursday?
They are Thursday afternoons. And then I did put in a request already for tennis in the park. That will be Monday afternoons in July, working with the United's Tennis Association of New England. And those will be Monday afternoon, starting at 3:30 to 5:30 for youth, and then from 6 to 7:30 for adults. So if anybody who's an adult would like to learn, you get a free tennis racket if you are a first-time learner.
And these are at Marble Mill?
Marble Mill.
Yep.
Correct.
So,
And then additionally, I just wanted to bring it up too, as it's been an issue for years here at the rec department, but we are, Little League season is upon us. Parking on Lake Street has always been an issue. Again, I just wanted to come to you guys to ask for permission to put a sign out that there is no rec parking on Lake Street.
Chief, how do we enforce that with a sign that's not tied into, is it kind of just a warning, or how are you able to enforce that?
It's a good question, I will have to research it.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, I just, in case, you know.
Just perhaps one of our,
I have the
White.
village police ordinances here. So, let me see quickly. Park.
While you research, if I
Yeah.
can ask a follow-up
Go ahead.
question. So we bought the brand-new net that we're gonna put on the furthest court, right?
Mhm.
So as soon as, it was gonna be soon, but as soon as the snow goes away. We had talked about collaborating for pickleball-specific courts on court, we'll call them 1 and 2, the ones closest to. When USTA comes to town in July.
They understand that they are
Okay.
lined for pickleball, and they
Okay.
think that it's perfect for beginners. They just want to promote tennis in our region as there's a very limited amount of people right now.
they're, I believe, dual marked. Are these dual marked still? Because the
Court
pickleball
1
fits
and, Court
inside.
1 and 2 are newly refreshed for pickleball with fading outside lines at the request of the pickleball players. Court 3 is still designated for both, they do both on it, but it will have a new tennis net and is primarily designed for tennis.
Okay, so in the Swanton Village parking ordinances, in section 5502, it says that the village board of trustees has the authority to erect street traffic and stop signs as deemed necessary on all village streets and roadways. So then the enforcement would fall under section 5505, removal of vehicles parked in violation. Would you like me to pass that to you?
No, the question is though, she's asking for an advisory sign for Little League rec parking only, it's not
For no
permanent.
parking, no
For
rec parking at
no
all
parking,
on Lake
period.
Street.
So the question, if you made it permanent, and I think a
Permanent.
proper motion was made,
Yeah,
that's different than,
okay.
I think,
so-
what was being asked for.
Right.
Temporary.
It's an issue,
Yeah.
and our neighbors
Yeah.
have stated year after year, so I'm trying to get
So
out ahead of
if
it.
it's a permanent issue, then I make a motion to make a permanent sign on Blake Street that permanently says no rec parking allowed on that street.
You are.
Hi, Jason Guyette, Swanton Village resident. Also on the rec board, and not to detract from that, but if you were to pass that motion, then you would limit any future parking on that street whatsoever to any visitors, because the parking at the apartments is limited anyway. My mother-in-law used to live there, and sometimes you have to have that overflow that's there, so just something to consider before.
Limited to one side, like the rec side maybe, and no parking over on the residential?
Well, I couldn't
So, yeah.
talk about what the statutes are as far as how the right-of-way for parking works on the street, but I do believe that there's some allowances that are typically there for that, so just something to consider before
Is there
we
kind of like
handcuff
a
ourselves.
grass area between the road and the fence on that? right
There
side?
are, and I do believe there are already no parking signs up on that side of the street. I'm more looking for something at the top of the street, so people don't even turn in to go down there, to park down there. I'm thinking like something that we could just temporarily put out during Little League season, no rec parking and take away when Little League season is finished.
Oh, so temporary, not permanent.
That was my ask.
That's something you just build?
I would get professionally printed, like a political sign to put in the ground during Little League season.
Is there a pole there or something? We could get a flip-up sign that can be closed when we're not in use and flip-down sign or something like that?
I mean, honestly, I think just, if you're gonna do just a political sign, pop
Right.
it in and take it out, you're only gonna need it on the day of the games.
Again, I just wanted,
Yeah.
not my street,
Yep.
wanted to ask you
Yep.
guys.
I mean,
to make
Well,
sure.
I mean,
The John
no,
Raleigh
it-
sign's right there, right?
It
on
states
Blake
that
Street?
it's.
No, I think that's
It
closer
states that we have the
to Jewett
authority
Street.
to erect the street sign. It doesn't say it has to be a permanent street sign. It states that we have the authority to erect it. The public directs workers shall have the lines, markings, or the sign placed upon the street, designating parking areas, and will be unlawful and a violation of this ordinance to park any vehicle across any such line or marking, or park said vehicle in a position that shall not be entirely without the area so designated. So it doesn't need to be necessarily a permanent structure. Much like we do the winter parking ban, we could do a summer parking ban or a summer rec season, Little League season
It's
parking
really
ban.
just May through July
Just worry about it for games.
games.
So can I amend my motion to read a parking ban on Blake Street, May through July,
Is that correct?
on the side of John Raleigh Memorial Field? That is my motion.
And who is doing the sign? You're making the sign? Public
I need
Works
somebody to
doing the
second it
sign?
before we have any more discussion.
I will do so. I will second her motion. I had a question while I've got the floor. Sometimes may overflow into August if you're really good.
It could, sorry, sir. My concern with an overt ban
Yeah.
during that time is that then you're running into weekends, that people are visiting that apartment building, that you may then be enforcing something that's there, and alls we're really looking for is just something permission to put a sign out there during games, just to
Yeah.
say, hey, don't park here. I don't know, I have concerns that if we
What time
put a full ban in
Well,
there.
their parking ban for the winter parking has times, so we could do a time slotted parking ban that would work in conjunction with your Little League game time. Then it doesn't lock us into a full parking ban for 3 months, but it allows that street to not have cars parked on it, and it allows the village police department to do something about it if cars are parked on there. Because right now, you're gonna put a sign out, and somebody can say, oh yeah, okay, I read that, and then park there anyway, and nothing, his hands are tied, he can't do anything. So having a parking ban that is similar to the winter parking ban that has hours allows the chief and his patrol officers to enforce that no cars are parked there. And once people get ticketed a few times, they will stop parking there.
That's good.
Question,
Yes.
are you okay with people getting ticketed?
So we have tried to mediate it. They don't listen to us.
Fair question.
We have offered, I know in years past, I found a ticket book where the rec actually said, please don't park there. This is coming at the request of the neighbors. The neighbors are tired of having people parking in their lawn, throwing out trash, being disrespectful to their space. And that's, I'm trying to be a nice neighbor and be considerate of those around us. And it seems like this is.
What, I'm sorry. May I?
Yeah.
What hours do you typically have your Little League games? Like, for example, our winter parking ban is from midnight to 6 AM. What time do you typically have?
Let me ask the Little League
Nick,
folks.
what time do you,
6 to 8.
Sunrise to sunset.
6 PM to 8 PM? Okay.
But do they start parking there before, for
Yeah,
warm-ups,
so
for,
I see
right,
two.
So
so,
5.
Five.
to 8.
Do you have
So-
weekend games?
Yeah.
Saturday mornings, and then we have a co-ed adult softball league starting on Sundays. And with Shedrick's martial arts being in the building where Wayside Furniture is another reason why I'm here asking, because I don't want the recreation parking to impede with their business as well.
What if we did a 5 PM to not, let's just say 9 PM, May through July parking ban?
Is this gonna require an ordinance update?
No, yes, actually it
Right?
will, yes, it
Which
will.
will take 45 days to become in effect, so someone, if we're gonna do
We
that.
would need to move on
we'll
it.
do it now,
Yep,
because you gotta get that 45 day.
what are your thoughts?
I don't know that I'm in favor of a ban.
Permanent?
It would be much like a winter parking ban that we have in effect, certain hours, certain times, only during those times, other times it's perfectly feasible to park there.
Can we restrict it to just like rec parking, no rec parking, but other people could park, kind of like?
No,
it-
no, it'd be like the winter parking ban where it would be from 5
Everybody.
PM to 9 PM, no one can park on this side of Lake Street.
Residents only, that type of thing.
Nicole, it's fair to say that everybody has a parking spot if they drive out back, right?
For the rec,
any
absolutely.
For any event that's held there.
Yes.
There you go, that's true.
I mean, even advisory, right, the goal for law enforcement is to impact behavior. And in large part, they're gonna just ask people to move, and the fact that there is an advisory sign there, not that it's gonna say advisory, but if it's not ratified in a village ordinance, in all likelihood, when they're approached by law enforcement, they're gonna move their car.
Well, we wouldn't want the sign to look like it's no parking for recreation down the street at all, because then they would be like, well, we can't get down the street to get to the parking for recreation, which is out back.
That's the wrong.
Which they would have to go down Jewett Street to
Right,
get to,
right.
not on
There's
Blake.
no
Oh, Blake Street.
No access.
Yeah.
Different street.
Right.
Yeah, Blake, okay.
There is no parking on Jewett Street either,
That's what I
but
thought.
that is clearly marked.
They still do it.
They do still do it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Can you repeat your motion, please?
Yes.
Sorry.
It's okay. I motion to have a Little League parking ban from 5 PM to 9 PM, May through July, on Blake Street. I think that's it. That covered it, right? Yeah, that covered it.
And I seconded that.
Any yeas or nays or questions about accept the motion, and
We're all in favor.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.
Great.
That's all
Can I
the public
just read that motion back? So, the motion to approve a Little League parking ban from 5 to 9 PM on Blake Street,
May through July,
May through July.
just like the winter parking ban.
Yep. And then Eugene seconded.
I did.
Thank you.
And just as a further note, I think Bill was right. We anticipate a revision to the ordinance.
The ordinance will order signage, or do you want to take care of that? If it's permanent, I would suggest that we take care of that. Okay.
Yeah, I'd prefer
Yeah.
the village take care of it if it's a village ordinance.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I'm all for just a little sign that says no parking, but, you know, if it's not gonna work, then it's not gonna work.
I think it more comes to the enforcement. I mean, we can tell people not to, and they're just kind of like, ah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And as the season nears, right, we gotta wait the 45 days for it to be official.
30.
Time.
So it'll run into May,
It could.
the second week of May before it's in effect.
when do your games start?
Get most of it.
Towards the middle of May.
The sign can still go up, it's just, that it's advisory. You can't do any enforcement action other than, sir, you can't park here.
Yeah.
You just, if they say, well, yes, I can, well, we're not gonna take punitive action, because we can't, unless there's other circumstances, and we can't tow the car. Once it becomes official, then you'll post it, I assume, on your Facebook page, we'll do the same. We'll put it on the website, we'll share the language from the ordinance, so people will be educated.
Thank you.
And along with your Swanton rec duties, we are still looking for Memorial Day parade people.
I will let the president of Little League know.
Thank you.
Any more public comments?
It's funny, Nicole.
Approve the minutes.
So next, approve the minutes from Monday, March 11th, 2024.
I'll move they be approved as printed.
I second.
I'll accept it.
Any discussion?
Discussion for
No.
minutes?
No.
Anybody?
Great job, Diane.
Is anybody online yet? One person?
Two people online.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next up is the approve the village warrants through Thursday, March 21st, 2024.
That's mine. I move that we approve and accept the warrants through Thursday, March 21, 2024.
And I'll second.
Discussion?
I only had one, and I thought I had asked this, but I guess I didn't. Number 30, facility technical services, 42,250.
That would have been up at the hydro plant.
Okay. I am making notes, so I don't have to keep bothering you.
That's okay.
Is that the only concern?
That was it? Yes,
That's
thank
it?
you.
Okay. Call for a vote to accept the,
Aye.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next up, Swan Village Police Department update with Chief Matt Sullivan. Welcome, Matt.
You can see you have quite the packet of information in front of you. It has been a few months, so unfortunately, I did not get the opportunity to do the end-of-year report. So that was on the top of the packet that you have. So covering the year in review for 2023, the Swanton Village Police Department handled a total call volume of 2,759 incidents in 2023. That's up approximately 17% from 2,352 in 2022 and down approximately 4% from 2,884 in 2021. And as discussed in last year's report, this may be due in part because we changed computer-aided dispatch and records management systems. So there's a slight difference in nomenclature. We responded to 1,839 incidents in the village, which was up 41% from 1,307 in 2022, and 920 incidents in the town, up approximately 27% from 752 in 2022. Regarding traffic, we performed 446 traffic stops. That's up 11% from 401 in 2022, stopping 143 vehicles in the village issuing 136 warnings and 65 tickets. Approximately 95% of all the traffic stops in the village resulted in a warning, while 45% resulted in a ticket. And there is some overlap in both tickets and warnings, because operators may receive multiple warnings and/or tickets on any given traffic stop. Swanton Village Police Department stopped 200 vehicles in the town, issuing 169 warnings and 77 tickets. Approximately 85% of the stops in the town resulted in a warning, while 39% resulted in a ticket. Aggregating the data for the village and the town, which was 343 traffic stops, yields SVPD issuing warnings in 89% of traffic stops and tickets in 41% of traffic stops. SVPD wrote 31,103 worth of traffic tickets, with 11,862 worth of traffic tickets in the village and 13,314 in the town. And so, Trustee Kelleher had a question previously about where the funds were going, because the village and/or gets a slight percentage. And it seems like most of it's going to the town rather than the village. So some of that, I believe, may be a coding issue. So we are a 0615 code, but if that traffic enforcement is done in the village, the officers need to put a V on the end of that code, and that may be the problem. So I want to say the majority of that money ended up back to the town, because it was just being coded as 0615. So that is my theory as to your question.
That makes sense.
During traffic enforcement, officers made 22 arrests for operation after suspension or revocation of license, and that's commonly referred to as DLS. There were 13 arrests for DLS in the village and 7 arrests for DLS in the town. We also made 22 driving under the influence arrests, commonly referred to as DUI, 7 arrests for DUI in the village, and 11 arrests for DUI in the town. Approximately 10% of traffic stops resulted in arrests, and 446 traffic stops resulted in 45 total arrests. So one thing that I look up at the end of the year that is not necessarily included in the town and village reports itself is race data also, which was something that we dove pretty deeply into in Burlington as well. And so what we're looking for is really whether or not officers are engaged in some sort of bias in their policing activity. So race data associated with traffic stops show SVPD officers issued 359 warnings to white operators and 155 tickets to white operators. Operators may be issued, again, multiple warnings or tickets in one stop, so it doesn't necessarily reflect individual operator numbers. The data indicates 30.2% of documented enforcement against white operators was tickets versus 69.8% warnings. SVPD stopped 20 black operators, issuing 12 tickets and 16 warnings, and black operators represented 4.5% of all traffic stops. Now, in Burlington, they used multiple different metrics to gauge the driving population. So census data is one metric, and then probably more appropriately is crash data, because it's our true sample of the people who are driving in a community. So in looking at that, the rough statistic is that black operators represent 8% of the driving population according to crash data. And the other thing to keep in mind in looking at race data is law enforcement, whether it's criminal or civil, is based on subject behavior. So I go into, you'll see an analysis as far as the breakdown on the population regarding census data, and in taking a closer look at the black operators that were stopped, only 2 of the 20 operators stopped reside in Swanton, representing 0.5% of all traffic stops. 5 of the 20 operators stopped were targets of drug investigations, and these stops were externally generated or investigatory in nature. In sum, there appears, given the fact that it's 0.5% of all traffic stops for black individuals living in Swanton, it appears there's no disparity in traffic enforcement by Swanton officers when using population data as the metric.
Question.
Sure.
Just before you move on, just going back to the incidents, do those numbers include anything to do with Stone Garden?
Yes, they will.
Okay.
The total numbers will include those.
Okay.
I can pull that data out also. So you'll see some of the enforcement activity is outside of both the village and the town, and most likely that is associated with Stone Garden.
Yep.
Unless an officer observed a violation, for example, a traffic violation in the town, and then followed that vehicle, if they suspected DUI, for
Right.
example, into Highgate or Albert, one of those areas. But yes, we have a flag essentially in our incidents, so I did not pull that out in this report, but I can search the data and pull data out specific to Stone Garden also, as long as it's flagged appropriately.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
So moving on to arrests, Swanton Village Police Department officers made 238 arrests, and that's arrest charges. So it's important to think about the distinction between actual physical arrests versus writing somebody a citation to appear in court, which is essentially an invitation to appear at a later date. Rule 3 is very strict, dictating when officers can actually make full custody arrest of an individual who's violated the law. The arrest charges represent a 52% increase over 2022. Approximately 9% of all incidents resulted in arrest. The 238 criminal charges represent 152 individuals. 77% were issued citations to appear in court. 12% were lodged. 3% were requests for arrest warrants, and 8% were arrests on court-ordered warrants. Race data looking at the arrests are as follows: 152 total arrests, 138 white, 20 black, 2 unknown. This yields 86% of arrestees were white, 13% black, and 1% unknown. There appears to be racial disparity in arrests when using population data as the metric. However, it is important to look at the context of the arrests, and also whether or not the arrest is discretionary or non-discretionary. So higher level crimes essentially mandate an arrest, where lower level incidents maybe give officers some discretion as far as whether or not to arrest the individual. Out of the 20 arrests of black people, 4 were related to drug possession distribution, 2 were arrests on warrants, 2 were protection order violations, 1 was for domestic assault, 3 for simple assault, 3 for DUI, 1 for larceny from a person, 1 for false pretenses, 1 for failure to return a rental vehicle, 2 for DLS. Out of all the charges, DLS in some sense offers the most discretion out of all of those charge categories. And even then, I would argue that our hands could be somewhat tied, because if we allow an operator to just drive down the road after encountering them and then they get into a crash, and the individual who suffers injury as a result of that may come back to the police department and be looking at the police department for not taking appropriate action. So given that, out of those 20 arrests, at least 18 were non-discretionary in nature, which yields 2 arrests may be discretionary, and then in looking at the total percentage, 1.3% aligns with population data. Use of force is the next category. SVPD officers used force in 16 incidents in 2023 compared to 20 in 2022. Thus, officers used force in 0.58% of the incidents they responded to, which is lower than the national average of 1.8% of incidents from a sample of approximately 60 million police contacts with civilians.
So Chief, use of force is anything beyond voluntary handcuffing?
That is correct. And voluntary handcuffing in and of itself still needs to be reported in the report itself, because we are seizing somebody against their will. And so that needs to be documented there. But anything beyond voluntary handcuffing requires a use of force report.
When you say documented, just like if that's an affidavit, I then place the suspect in handcuffs, or then, is that how you document it?
Yeah, so and officers will do this slightly differently, but there's a report narrative in the narrative field that officers will do if it does result in arrest and they're doing an affidavit. Sometimes they'll just copy and paste the affidavit in that field. I prefer that they stick more to the elements of the crime in the affidavit itself and not necessarily get into the minutia of the use of force. But there is a separate field for use of force reporting, in the CAT-RMS system that officers are required to complete, if they're required to do that. But then again, if it's just compliant handcuffing and the individual's compliant, it should be documented in that report narrative. So out of the use of force incidents, looking at race data, it seems to indicate no bias on the part of SVPD officers. 3 of the 16 incidents involved force on black people. 2 of the uses of force on black people were on the same individual in 2 of the different incidents. These were low-level uses of force, and that individual self-reports suffering from mental health issues. And the context of these incidents is important. So one of the arrests was a male who was involved in a drug investigation. We had a burglary in the village of Swanton. A firearm was stolen out of the residence during that burglary. That firearm was traded for crack cocaine at a residence in Enosburg that was known for distribution. We obtained a search warrant and executed the search warrant on that residence in Enosburg. We located 2 subjects. We arrested 4 subjects during the execution of that search warrant. 3 were white, 1 were black. The black male and white female were from Taunton, Massachusetts, were found in possession of 41 grams of crack cocaine, several firearms, firearm parts, and several $1,000s of U.S. currency. And so the use of force was associated with the execution of the search warrant. When we execute a search warrant, our firearms are out. We're pointing them at everybody because we don't know. It's a very unpredictable situation. Until that scene is secured, then the firearms are put away, but we point firearms at everybody we encounter. So no one was injured in the course of that use of force. And it is noteworthy that individual who we arrested for distribution ended up pleading guilty to felony possession of cocaine, served about 2 weeks, was subsequently released, and then we received information that he was associated with a homicide that occurred in Massachusetts, that Mass State Police is currently investigating. There were the 2 other incidents involving the same male, were incidents involving an ongoing domestic situation. In one of the incidents, the male failed to immediately stop his vehicle when the officer attempted a motor vehicle stop. When the vehicle came to rest, the operator immediately began to exit his vehicle. Due to the unknown circumstances, the officer began to remove his firearm from the holster until the male exited the vehicle and laid on the ground of his own volition. No one was injured in that incident. And during the second incident with the same male, the male violated a restraining order and was fleeing the area on foot. The male sought cover in the wooded area behind Hannaford's, and due to the male attempting to conceal himself in the woods, the officer drew his firearm until the suspect complied with the verbal commands, exiting the woods. The subject was taken into custody without incident. Again, no one was injured in that incident. Out of all of the use of force, subject suffered 3 minor injuries out of the 16 incidents, while officers suffered minor injury in 4 of the 16 incidents. All 3 subjects who suffered minor injury were white. The context of the incidents where the subject suffered minor injury were all related to DUI incidents. And just to, again, to look at the context is important. An intoxicated female crashed her car into a field, and then subsequently punched an officer in the face prior to being brought to the ground. Another was a male subject who crashed his car and fled from officers into a quarry. The officers pursued the male through the quarry and eventually had to take the subject to the ground to place him in custody, and it is unclear whether the male suffered minor injury when he was brought to the ground by officers or when he fell off a small cliff right before coming into contact with the officers in that quarry area. The last one was an intoxicated male who resisted the officer attempting to arrest him for DUI. The officer was struggling with the individual against his vehicle when another officer showed up, and they were successfully able to bring the subject to the ground and control the situation. So that covers use of force for the year. Drug enforcement and criminal enforcement, the Swanton Village Police Department had 53 search warrants, incidents, I should say, more specifically over the course of 2023 compared to 7 in 2022. Although all these incidents may not directly correlate, again, to the execution of search warrants, it is indicative of the great amount of investigative work the officers have been doing over the course of 2023. The norm for SVPD over the past decade has been approximately 5 search warrants per year. Sometimes that number was as low as 0, sometimes 1 or 2. But again, it shows the great work that the officers have been doing over the last year. The majority of the search warrants in 2023 were associated with drug activity in the community, and some examples of that are in January. The first search warrant was executed on a motor vehicle registered in New York, and officers recovered $5,000 cash in that vehicle. Also in January, a second search warrant was executed on a motor vehicle after an officer was called to a residence in the village for a trespassing issue. During his initial contact, the officer observed many firearms in the residence, and a male dove out a window, which of course piqued the officer's suspicion as to what was going on. The officer did a great job surveilling the residence and noticed the other occupant he was in contact with loading multiple firearms into a vehicle. When the officer began to follow the vehicle away from the residence, the vehicle fled at a high rate of speed and was eventually seized. And that search warrant yielded 57 grams of crack cocaine base, as well as 5 firearms. A second search warrant was executed on the residence associated with this search warrant, resulting in additional evidence related to firearms being recovered. And the individual who dove out the window was identified as Zaquaquan Roy out of Brooklyn, New York. Zaquaquan Roy was eventually arrested in Maine for the homicide that he committed in Leicester shortly thereafter on June 4th of 2023.
Yeah, my kid was on that scene.
Also in January, officers executed a search warrant on a residence in Enosburg, which I already discussed. It was the subject's out of Taunton, Massachusetts, recovering 41 grams of cocaine base, $6,032 in cash, and 5 firearms, including stolen firearms from the burglary in the village, and 2 machine gun conversion devices, which also we have been seeing more of in Vermont in general.
And Chief, you said that these subjects are back in the Taunton area, they're no longer operating up here, or?
That's correct, as far as we know.
As far as
In March, officers executed another search warrant in Highgate, just outside the village, related to drug distribution. During this warrant, officers arrested 2 males from Springfield, Massachusetts for distributing narcotics, recovered 13 grams of cocaine, 73 bags of fentanyl, and $1,850 in cash. Also in March, officers executed a search warrant related to drug distribution on Covey Drive. During the execution of this search warrant, officers encountered 2 blood gang members who were on federal probation out of New Jersey City, New Jersey. Their federal probation was subsequently revoked. In May, officers engaged in interdiction stop related to drug distribution and seized 520 bags of fentanyl and 0.5 grams of cocaine base, arresting a St. Albans resident. A search warrant was subsequently executed on the vehicle, resulting in officers locating 29 Suboxone strips and crushed pills. In July, officers executed a search warrant on a vehicle they seized during a traffic stop at the end of June, locating 2 grams of cocaine base, 2.4 grams of fentanyl, several pills, LSD, a firearm, and drug paraphernalia, resulting in the arrest of a St. Albans resident. In August, an introduction stop occurred on South River Street, resulting in officers seizing 18 grams of cocaine base, 20 bags of fentanyl, resulting in arrest of a St. Albans resident who was being investigated for federal drug trafficking and firearms violations. The suspect fled the area upon release and was arrested in January of 2024 by the U.S. Marshals. In September, a search warrant was executed on a resident in Alberg related to drug distribution investigation, resulting in officers recovering 25 grams of cocaine, 13.8 ounces of marijuana, and drug paraphernalia. The Alberg homeowner was arrested. In September, officers executed a search warrant on a vehicle seized in a traffic stop on South River Street, that same one that I previously mentioned, in August, recovering 4.1 grams of cocaine base and a stolen firearm. In September, officers executed a search warrant on another vehicle related to drug distribution, and yielding investigative leads in that search warrant. In October, officers executed a search warrant on a vehicle locating a silicone container containing trace amounts of white powder. In October, officers applied for multiple warrants associated with electronic devices related to drug investigations. And that's another thing with these drug investigations, they're extremely complex. There's so much data contained in cell phones. And so it's not just the initial execution of the search warrant, you're then seizing electronic devices. And for many years now, the state of Vermont has required us to apply for search warrants for each individual electronic device. We used to, as a matter of course, just include those in the first search warrant, and we're able to search those devices as part of the initial search warrant. That is no longer the case. Judges need to review that on a case-by-case basis for each individual electronic device. Unless, of course, we're granted consent, but if it's as a result of executing the search warrant, it's always probably best practice to again, obtain another search warrant for that device.
Those can be tracked, right, to wherever that individual's been with the phone, right, to.
Depending on the data that's in there, it certainly can be, depending on what there is. Certainly there's metadata and photos and that sort of thing, but there's a wealth of information. The text alone, it's difficult because they contain so much information. You can spend hundreds of hours just trying to sift through the contents of a cell phone. But it's a valuable part of these investigations. In November's officers executed a search warrant on a residence in the town, yielding residual amounts of narcotics associated with an investigation of individuals from Pennsylvania. In November, officers executed a search warrant on a residence on Grand Avenue associated with an aggravated assault that occurred on the rail trail at Robin Hood Drive, where a gun was discharged. Officers recovered evidence at that residence associated with that aggravated assault. In December, officers executed a search warrant on a rental vehicle that was seized after the operator was found in possession of cocaine. And in sum, again, the majority of the above investigative work is related to drug distribution activity in the village and the town, and it is noteworthy that 3 of the individuals associated with these investigations were involved in homicides, with 1 individual who was a target of drug trafficking in Swanton, ending up one of the victims in the double homicide in Burlington this fall. So, getting through that, you will now see a summary, was the next document that I had, of all Swanton Village Police Department incidents in 2023. The top 10 incident types are traffic stops 446, suspicious persons 253, directed patrols 236, agency assist 178, community outreach 158, citizen assist 127, motor vehicle complaints 121, property watches 115, welfare checks 102, and citizen disputes 94. After that summary, you will see each category broken down with actual numbers for the number of incidents we responded to. And then getting into December 2023, you will see the top 10 incident types for December for both the village and the town. Swanton Village Police Department responded to 241 incidents. Out of those, there were 43 traffic stops, 8 tickets, 39 warnings, 5 arrests associated with the traffic enforcement, 12 arrest charges total, representing 10 individuals. And then again, you can see a pie chart there, which breaks down the top 10 incident types for the month of December for both the village and the town. The next document that you'll see in color is specific to the village for the year-end summary. It has at the top SVPD Village 2023. The top 10 incident types there were suspicious persons, 169, traffic stops, 144, community outreach, 95, citizen assist, 89, citizen disputes, 94, motor vehicle complaints, 63, directed patrol, 62, welfare checks, 56, agency assist, 53, and property home watches, 52. And then the pages after that break down a summary of all the different call types and the numbers associated with those call types in response. And I apologize, we're moving quickly to try to move through this.
All good.
Right.
All good.
And you, certainly, obviously, you can, if you have any questions regarding any of this information, reach out to me and I can provide more clarity. December of 2023, for the village only, SVPD handled 118 incidents, 14 traffic stops, 3 tickets were issued in those traffic stops, 14 warnings, and 3 arrests were associated with those traffic stops. There were 7 arrest charges total, representing 6 individuals. And then after that page, again, you will see the summary of those incidents and where they occurred with the times and dates. And all of this information also is on the police blotter on the website as far as total incidents responded to over the last couple of years. 22 and 23, and where we are in 24. The next document that I have is for the village, January 24. SVPD officers responded to 128 incidents, 14 traffic stops, 5 tickets, 15 warnings, 2 arrests out of those traffic stops, 12 arrest charges total, representing 9 individuals. And if you're looking at the summary there, the pie chart indicates the top 10 incident types. There were 18 directed patrols, 15 suspicious people, 14 traffic stops, 12 citizen assists, 9 community outreach, 4 search warrants, 4 threatening, 3 agency assists, 3 restraining order related incidents, and 3 alarms. January 2024 for the village and the town combined, SVP responded to 240 incidents, 18 traffic stops, 17 tickets were issued. But out of those 17 tickets, it's important to note that 10 of them were Title VII violations, associated, I believe, mainly with tobacco violations at the high school. There were 20 warnings issued in the traffic stops, 2 arrests were made as a result of the traffic stops. There were 24 arrest charges in total, representing 14 individuals. The top 10 incident types were 55 directed patrols, 19 suspicious person, 18 traffic stops, 13 citizen assists, 12 community outreach, 11 agency assists, 10 controlled substance problems, 9 juvenile problems, 9 motor vehicle complaints, and 8 crashes.
Interesting that there were more incidents in the village than in the town in January. 128 to 112, if I did the math.
Yes, that
Yeah.
may be the case.
Yep. Interesting.
And again, you're keeping in mind that we are responsible for patrolling the village.
Right.
24/7 response, 20 hours of active patrol. And so that does lead to higher numbers sometimes in the village.
Exactly.
February, looking at February for the village of 2024, we responded to 105 incidents. In total, 13 traffic stops, 7 tickets were issued, 11 warnings, 1 arrest out of the traffic stops. There were 4 arrest charges representing 3 individuals. Traffic stop was your number 1, tied with suspicious persons as far as incident types go. There were 9 alarms, 8 directed patrols, 8 citizen assists, 8 community outreach, 5 or 6 VIN inspections, 5 motor vehicle complaints, 5 welfare checks, and 4 citizen disputes. And then there's a breakdown and summary of those incidents attached. And then for the village and the town combined in February, we handled 199 incidents, 44 traffic stops, 19 tickets were issued, 36 warnings, 3 arrests out of those traffic stops, 9 arrest charges representing 6 individuals. The top incident types, again, were the traffic stops at 44, 21 directed patrols, 20 suspicious persons or circumstance, 12 citizen assists, 11 community outreach, 10 motor vehicle complaints, 10 alarms, 9 welfare checks, 7 VIN verifications, and 4 threatening complaints. And that brings us up to date.
Interesting observation you made,
Yeah.
and then I started looking. I think it's consistent.
Yeah.
It's been busy in the town.
Yeah.
We have, and it was something that came up in the select board meeting when they gave their end of year summary. It's interesting, if you look at the data that we handled, I want to say 920 incidents in the town during our contract hours from 5 at night to 1 a.m. And Vermont State Police handled roughly 500 in total, responsible for 2/3 of the time policing the town. So it's interesting in the sense that I believe that what that indicates is that we are much more proactive in our approach. And in fairness to Vermont State Police, they just simply don't have the capacity to be that proactive when they're responsible for policing this huge area of the northwest portion of Vermont. And they're operating with, a few troopers on shift at any given time. So that's really, I believe, you know, a pretty good example of proactive policing versus responsive policing.
Right, and we're talking about 8 hours versus 20 hours.
Yes, yes,
So-
for village and town, comparing village and
Yeah,
town.
yeah.
Have you moved to your the 10 in the town as of,
Not yet, it will be as of April 1st. Yes.
So,
About a
Very.
week and 10 days.
and you said you were able to cross-reference that with the state police information for when we're not covering a town, right?
For the whole year,
For
yes.
the whole year, and see what those metrics are compared to, you know, the villages. Sounds like it's busier in town, could possibly be somewhat
With aggressive enforcement.
aggressive enforcement.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, if you're, we're more densely populated, obviously, in the village, right? But the
Right.
town is such a large area with a larger population,
It's harder to even
so
patrol. and
that
do.
plays into it as well.
The
Yeah, but-
Vermont State Police authorized strength is 327. They now are officially down 75 positions and well on their way to 100 vacancies.
Yeah. But you can see that also the traffic enforcement, I think, is skewed a little bit more towards the town than the village. Because again, people are operating at higher rates of speed outside of the village proper.
I think my biggest takeaway is the drug enforcement. I mean, it's,
It's out there.
you know, it's out there, we still have an issue.
yeah,
We still have an issue, which is, you know, and I don't see it going away. I don't know, you know, what there is,
it's
you know, that we
basically
as
like
trustees
whack-a-mole.
can do to make it easier for you, other than enact new state laws that make sense, but that's just my opinion. But it's, you know, the drug enforcement's out there, and the drugs are out there, we need to keep pushing.
Yeah, and, you know, again, I've addressed this before, it's kind of the same situation I've dealt with my whole career, is you have an individual who suffers from substance use disorder, they get connected with somebody from out of state usually, who is the distributor bringing up large quantities from large urban areas such as New York, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, mainly, Massachusetts. And then they're distributing the narcotics through the residents, using the local individual's residence. And then there's a lot of other secondary crime associated with that, right? The property crime associated with it. And then it gets to the point where, again, there's prostitution associated with it as far as when people get into debt. These individuals from out of state will force women into prostitution. They've essentially forced people to give up their vehicles, and they use their vehicles to make runs back and forth to the city because they're in debt to them from fronting drugs. So there's a whole, and you can see just from the summary itself, that there's a lot of violent crime associated with this activity also. So I would much rather see people make the choice to get the help they need and get to recovery, but really they need to take that on themselves. They need to get to the point where they make the decision that they want to change their lives. We have certainly offered that to individuals, had that discussion, and I've told them, quite frankly, well, I can help you and I can link you with services to try to get you the help you need, or just know that we are gonna address this aggressively from a criminal enforcement angle, which is, you know, this number of search warrants that we execute is a good example of that over 2023. So the officers are doing great work. It's complicated work. We're leveraging partnerships with federal partners. And so, for example, Zuquay-Quanroy, that's a federal case now that tied into our local case, which is gonna be a part of that, so. There's definitely much more consequences in the federal criminal justice system than there is in the state system currently.
Just let people know out there, if you see something, say something. I mean, we're only as good as the information we're given.
Yeah, and generally the officers, I will say, the drug activity, the officers are very aware of it, and it's going on consistently, and unfortunately you take some people off and new people step into their place, so it's, like you said, it's never ending to
Right.
some degree.
Yeah.
But
Whack-a-mole.
we'll continue to address it.
So, thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Fantastic work, thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah. discussions about the report, or anybody have any comments or other comments? Okay, let's move it along. Okay, number 8, discussion of the defacing at Marble Mill Park.
So I can kick it off, give an overview. So once again, vandalism occurred. We're going to clean that up as quickly as possible. The snow has prevented that, but as soon as we can, we have paint on hand. It's being investigated by the police department. The vandalism actually continues to the bridge and all the flower boxes that were vandalized. So I think the larger immediate need for Marble Mill are the things that we can do to make it a better place, more inviting. It's got an economic development driver, it's got a recreation driver, it's got all those things that are important to the community. So the immediate, easy things that we can do are to remove the graffiti, do a better job at installing, and this is probably true with a longer vision, for security and surveillance of all of our parks. So we need a high-resolution camera that's going to be on place with enhanced lighting on poles, and those will tie directly into our hydro facility, which is a 24/7 dispatch center, and that way the police can be notified and we can respond. Again, probably a large part of the vandalism might be happening after 2 a.m., so we can make concerted efforts to make sure we spot check on an overtime basis, especially when we think things are going to occur. So it's a combination of all of those things that we can do. We just know that based on past experience, sometimes we make that effort and it creates a very nice canvas for people to go and paint on. But regardless, studies show, national studies show, you must impact and defeat and remove graffiti within 24 to 72 hours, preferably 24. And at some point, they'll get the message. So the electric department just recently got the most recent shipment of new streetlights, like the one you see at 74 Merchants Row facing that gravel parking lot. So they are ready, willing, and able to install replacement lighting because it's overdue. Reminder again, it was certainly before my time, but the last time they put new lighting up was a Target, and people continually shot them out. So they put protective covers on the bottom, but again, we will have to spread the word through all of us, our social media, a police presence with some really good surveillance equipment that will extend to the bridge, to Foundry Street, to every park that we have, because it's just the right thing to do. That doesn't come free, so it will have to be a layered approach, starting with Marble Mill. But that's the immediate need to address those deficiencies. And then, of course, there's always a discussion about the bigger picture and what that looks like. But the immediate needs, I think we can impact, again, as soon as it dries. Here's the cost, $600 in paint. That's what we just picked up to do both the surface and the surrounding area and just paint it to make the graffiti go away.
So what about just removing the obstacles or the items that they seem to like to prefer to graffiti upon? Specifically that stone monolith in the kids' playground and the concrete vault or bank.
So that's
Safe.
one of them. They really hit the court probably worse than they ever have. They hit the curbing, for lack of better terminology, that runs down the entire length, and then the vault or
Yeah.
So they hit everything, and I think until we can demonstrate that we're going to have a more concerted effort there with better lighting, better security, and true, really good cameras. That's the only deterrent, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to get in there after hours and mask up and do it, but that's when we do some little surprise stuff. We'll hit them at 4 a.m. I'm willing to get in a ghillie suit. I'm not lying.
I'll join you. Any thoughts about the vandalism that's done on the play structure? Folks have engraved phallic-looking things, and it is not very appealing for young children to play on that structure anymore, as well as they've damaged the structure itself.
Where is this located?
The play structure at Marble Mill, the playground.
So the playground
I
where
was
the,
wondering if there's another one over by the elementary school. Is that one okay?
Yeah, beautiful still.
Strange, isn't it?
It is. Because the one, we have one at the rec that's also still.
It's not bothered. Very strange.
well, you know, for security, if you go down and you look at that, the monolith itself, or the old chimney base, is that what it's supposed to be?
It's a chimney.
Creates a visual barrier for people to see what's going on behind it from the illuminated areas. So you can look down there and people could be doing two things on two sides and you're not going to see them. And of course, that actually is on the other side where the playground is. So if parents are down there with the skateboard park with kids and kids are playing over on the playground equipment, you can't really monitor very well between the two because of the size of that structure. And then, of course, there's the interesting things that just constantly get spray painted upon that structure where the kids are and the families. So, I mean, it's just causes blight and gives the park a bad reputation, and it doesn't really serve any purpose functionally.
Is it a historical piece?
Yeah,
There,
there's,
For what purpose? I mean, it's part of the master plan was to remove the marble and reuse the marble as gateway sign or something.
I just throw it out there. It's.
Is it literally registered on the historical registry of whatever,
Who
that
knows?
chunk of marble?
Who knows?
I don't know.
And that's why I stated that that's something that we really need to bring the Historical Society
Mhm.
into further discussion on that, because it is a historical element, and I don't know what they've done to protect that, but also if that is something that is historical to them, we need some buy-in from the Historical Society to start taking care of these historical elements
Mhm.
that are important to them.
Well, that's a good point. They should, if they wanna, I don't see a purpose for it. I think we stick to the original master plan that was agreed upon to remove it
I
and
feel like,
save the pieces
What-
for
what
another
master plan?
historical purpose.
well, I feel like the master plan was in 2019, Bill?
Maybe something.
2019, that's what I was here about.
Thank you.
I thought the master
Please.
plan included that.
No,
So this was a discussion
it did.
him and I had, was
not when I reviewed
he
it.
stated that the areas in white on the master plan were to come down, and the chimney is in white on the master plan.
I really have to relook for it tonight, but I was
That's
quite sure that something was built around it, but it was incorporated into the new structure.
right,
of
and
the-
from what I
of the
could see
plan.
from the master plan, Gordon, is that it was included just a little bit, there's a picnic area, and it was just off to the right of the picnic area if you're facing the river. And it looked like it
I'll trust
was.
you, you're
it-
pushing my,
It's
I
okay.
thought it was done
It-
like 2 years ago, it's 2019.
Right, and so it looks like it was still included, but like I said, it was in white, so I don't know if it was, that means it was slated to come down or not come down.
I can easily review it tomorrow.
Perfect.
For the next day and get back to you and see what I just remember it being included in part of the master plan. I
Right.
thought that David might be right, but I thought that was included, that was one of the focal points of
To
the.
stay,
of
right.
the thing was to stay. And there was a phased-in plan for the master plan that could be brought in as money came in, that the park could be rejuvenated with lighting and maybe new pickleball courts and walking adult trails, and I just think the board should make sure that that was something that was, there's a grant, a committee, steering committee formed, a lot of public forums that came in what the public wanted, so when I saw on Facebook that you were talking about Marble Mill, I just wanted to remind everyone that you were through the exercise 5 years ago, the trustees all approved that plan, and it's something that you should be looking at and hopefully working towards and not starting the process over. That was
Fair point.
Right, but, and that wasn't, my intention wasn't to try to start the process over, it was just.
No, I just thought,
Yeah.
when I heard about the talk on Marble Mountain.
Yeah, looking at the master plan and wondering if the intention was to get rid of what most Swantonians would consider to be historical aspects.
I'm sure that came up quite often in the public comments,
Okay.
and I'll review it for you when I find it.
Thank you, Mr. Winters.
Bill, could you have the master plan for us for the next meeting? Or maybe even the meeting after, end of April?
Midnight tonight.
No, I
Yeah,
don't want
that's
it
when
then.
you'll have it.
don't want it then.
Have it on my phone, I can send it to you now.
Yep.
Um,
Same here.
But I reviewed the plan and it was my understanding that that was supposed to be repurposed as something else, taken down and made as a gateway entrance type of thing and something of that regard. But it is a blighted bone issue for the park and for the safety and well-being and how people look at that. I really don't see how that is helping.
Again, it's historic.
Right, what becomes problematic is that.
There's a lot of things historic that,
Everything
Right.
is historic in its whole, if
Right,
it's
but-
registered or
historic.
not.
We lost our Merchants Row, so there are only so many historical elements that still exist within Swanton. And I think that's why our constituents want to hold on to these historical elements, because we do not have a lot of them. It's merely just talking with the people who elected us and asking them, what do they want to do with these parts of the park? And it sounds like Mr. Winters is stating that they took that into consideration and that it was something that was supposed to stay because they changed the layout of the park. If we look at the master plan that you brought up, it shows that the playground has moved away from the, as you call it, monolith. And so therefore is something that would stay intact because now it's on the opposite side. If you look at what we looked at the other day.
Okay. So, I spoke with the Public Works people, and it's a bone of contention for dealing with this constantly. Painting it, managing it, the graffiti on it, the blight upon it. It's not very aesthetically pleasing, and the marble isn't even very pleasing to look at because it's completely painted over. So,
it's historic.
there are lots of historic things
I'm
that,
just saying,
I'm
just saying.
there are lots of parts of the park itself that are historic.
Mhm.
Right. Including the courts
Mr. Winters, do
and
you
lots
mind
of other
coming here for a
aspects
minute?
of it.
Yeah, no, I'm just,
Was there ever a timeline to decommission that at all?
Well, I was under the impression of a discussion earlier that this master plan has kind
Yeah.
of gone defunct anyway,
Yeah.
Oh,
because
part of
it's,
the issue was.
Cost, right?
Well, no, it's flood area.
right, so it wasn't
That was part
eligible
of-
for funding and granting to redo it.
Yeah, and it was gonna be very tough to get any sort of, if I remember right, Gene,
Yeah,
So the existing structures that are there are grandfathered in, so that makes a lot of good sense to keep it. I mean, the fence around the court is 100,000 plus. The courts themselves, if you recreate them, would be almost $750,000 today. So those type of assets do have value. And there's something to be said for they're resilient to the flooding. They've been there ever since I was a child, and the surfaces have been paved for how long now without any real movement or deformation, so to speak. Even the fence, when it gets wrangled by the ice, still sits there and we put how much time and effort into fixing the fences last year, right? So it's nice and straight, it's put back together again, looks kind of nice. So, since there isn't really millions available to redo any aspect of the master plan of this Marble Mill Park, there are things that we could simply do that were cost-effective and aesthetically more pleasing that would enhance it for the people that use it most of the time, which are for the recreation folks. And you could do simple things and build upon it, maybe some initiation of just sprinkling a little bit of effort onto it will spark some motivation to keep going with some other parts of it. But there's a lot of big projects that people want, and not a lot of big funding to do all these things. And for a lot of us, the Marble Mill Park was a great place that we hung out when we were younger. We have fond memories of it. A lot of new generations use it constantly. I'm watching them all the time. So, and I've been down, and I've painted over those objects at least 4 or 5 times myself. I can give you names of other people who went and did it as well. And after talking with the Public Works folks, they have an even bigger story about dealing with it and how much cost and time they're dealing with it. So there's nothing aesthetically pleasing about them. And they don't seem to serve a recreational function of any sorts. So what is the motivation to keep those items there? And then spending tons of money on high-tech cameras and things like that, and police work to constantly monitor the graffiti and going to find the individuals that mark them and deface them. I personally don't see it as a beneficial or anything significantly historical value. There are lots of things that we have that are old, that are historical. Sleuthway, the dam, all kinds of things that actually do have purpose and reason. But these items right here just seem to attract blight and issues and contention with the public and make the park itself look bad.
So if we were to remove this monolith, as you
Chimney.
call it, chimney,
Chimney
that would
base.
solve all the problems.
I don't
It would
think
solve the larger graffiti problems next to the playground.
I don't know that it would.
I don't know.
I don't know that it would.
I mean, they're hitting.
I think
the
it's just
ball.
one less thing they're gonna go and, they're gonna go
Well,
and
it's
paint.
one less big target thing, yes.
You know?
It would give you line of sight too across the park with that one.
Right, so if you had security cameras up, there wouldn't be any blind spots
Right.
around those items.
You could do a better
Electric
job
fence.
monitoring.
Electric fence. Well, you wanna put electric fence around it in the playground?
Don't ask that.
No. But,
If we refer
He'll
back,
learn, he'll learn.
if we refer back to the master plan, the playground is to be moved to the opposite side. As I am standing in the parking lot of Marble Mill and I'm looking down at the tennis courts, the playground is to be moved over to the right. So then, if that is something that we could fund to move towards doing, there would be no reason to take down the chimney, and you would still have the historical aspect of the chimney existing and the clear line sight between the playground, the tennis courts. I don't even know where the skate park is.
So once again, the question I propose to the group here and the community is what historical aspect, that significance is that stone chimney base?
You'll have to ask the Historical
Yeah,
Society.
exactly.
Can't ask me.
Exactly.
That's not my.
anybody from the Historical Society show up tonight?
But just because
Yeah,
they're not
Gordon, go
here
ahead.
doesn't mean that they don't have a say.
So I certainly wasn't coming here arguing for the chimney or against the chimney. I was just
No, I agree.
here to
What's your position on the
Talk about
chimney?
Master plan.
Yeah, I don't know enough of the chimney to talk about it, but I don't think the chimney originally in the master plan was meant to be removed.
Thank you.
That doesn't mean that every part of this master plan has to be followed. It's just a master plan to help the trustees move forward with what may be able to happen in the park. And I think the vision of Swanton at the time was to make the park a better place, and this is where it started. And I think it got tons of community support, and a lot of good ideas came out of that. I don't think there's anything that's defunct about the plan, because it was a floodplain when they did it. So I think Wagner Hodgson did it. They're great people. I would suggest maybe one meeting, when you have a light agenda, maybe bring them in and let them review it with you, and they could certainly tell you about different things. They're a company that could help move forward with some grants and with Heidi, and they would know what you can do in a floodplain and what you couldn't. But I I just think that might be a valuable exercise to get everyone back on speed on Marble Mill. If it was something that the trustees did want to move forward with, and maybe there's things you can do with not a lot of money and picket things.
Right, well, this was one of the things that we could do
So,
without a lot of
Jimmy,
money.
yeah.
Yeah, that would probably enhance it significantly.
Which,
And it's not like they couldn't be harvested and saved for something aesthetically pleasing to be reused and repurposed with the historical marble in a different way. So it doesn't mean like eliminate it completely, throw away the stone, but harvest it and save it for when something and funds come available, do something more significant. And like I said, we're eliminating two significantly sized targets of constant graffiti and unrest, so to speak.
Mr. Winter?
where do they come from? Do they come from the entrance, or do they come from the, you know, do they come down the back
The access.
alley, or, you know? to
I
me,
think it's a
one of the
combination.
big things of the master plan was that entrance, and was that parking lot, and was cleaning that up and brightening that up. The more inviting you make something, the less people come sometimes, and I think when you pull into Marble Mill and pull into the parking lot, pull into the entrance, that's something that maybe causes people to gravitate to going down into a dark
Yeah,
area.
that's a very good point, Gordon.
And we're 1 year away from those downtown enhancements, improved bikeability, walkability, enhanced crosswalk with signals right there that cuts over to Marble Mill. We can increase the lighting. For point of clarification for what we can do, honestly, I don't think the costs are so prohibitive for these easy things. Here's what I propose that our team does, that we get signage that's uniform for all of our parks, with one exception I'll talk about in a minute. That match the ordinances, closed 11 PM, 6 AM. Make sure they're clearly posted.
Like
and
the
marked.
beach and everything.
Pretty
Yep.
easy. The outlier is McQuam Beach, because we made a motion last year, knowing that it was outside the window, we put closing at 10 PM on purpose, because the neighbors were getting hammered with all the bad things. And here's the deal, so we can't write an ordinance ticket between 10 and 11. Things were so egregious and behavior was so poor, we needed to close that thing at 10 o'clock. And if it ever, comes around the other way, we can make it uniform down there. But that one truly does say 10 PM to 6 AM. For the others, and I'm talking Foundry and Marble Mill, we'll order those signs. We can look at the lighting solution. That was in the works regardless, so it's time to do that. We have those lights in stock. And then we can explore and bring to the trustees the cost of that security and surveillance, because enough is enough. No more ruining our stuff without any implications. Same as the boxes, the planters on the bridge. It's gotta stop. This thing's a gem, and honestly, we can collaboratively do better.
We had a window smashed at the theater building last night.
Really?
Yeah.
On the front, Gordon, or at the back, or?
Side. On
Side?
On the side?
Where the new
Really?
patio is.
You got cameras outside?
We've got cameras, it doesn't.
No, you're on camera.
Clear, haven't.
You're on
no.
camera. It's a clear and convincing image.
No.
We're gonna take action.
Absolutely is, and we got
Uh,
SVPDs right
We don't
on.
even know, it might have been
Construction.
snowplow, could
Or-
have been a rock, could
okay.
have been a stress, could have been it, but we think it was, there's some prints around.
Uh,
And that with the painting, that's at least
And
a
the
step in the right
boxes.
direction that we can
Yeah.
do quickly.
Absolutely.
So, once again, the flower boxes discussions, I mean, it does seem like they just need to be harder to resist, either to come up with some kind of steel flower box cage to go around it versus wood, something that they just can't wrangle off every time they want to.
That's probably something we should discuss with Hank, for the beautification committee when he comes to see us at
The
some
added
point.
cost to the beautification people too.
If I'm
People
not
don't like to do
mistaken,
things when they're illuminated.
What's that?
People do not like to do things when they're illuminated.
It's fully illuminated down there.
It's not great, it's not great lighting.
It's not.
It's not great
It's
lighting.
not great.
The bridge?
The bridge.
The bridge?
It's
It's
not
pretty
great
well
lighting.
illuminated.
Only on one side though.
I
One
know,
side.
but I walk both sides at night and quite, you're not able to hide from anybody there, that's for sure.
I've
while
told
you're
my
on it.
kids not to be down there.
Yeah.
It's too sketchy.
Or,
At
see,
night.
yeah,
Safety.
safety.
It's got nothing to do with the planners, it's got to do with the safety of it.
I had a question for those that know. It appears to me those window boxes on the bridge have been there without being hurt for quite a while. Is that true? I'd say
We
years.
had one incident last year, I think.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
last year there was
Neil's
one
box.
box taken and thrown or damaged, disappeared. In previous years from that, from what I gathered, with my involvement with the beautification committee, is that, they're taken care of by, Mrs. Kilburn and Mrs. Winters, and sometimes the plants will be taken out of the planters and thrown into the river, but there's never been, until last year, a case of a whole planter disappearing.
So it's been there for a few years, so,
Yeah.
you know, the boxes aren't the problem. The people are.
Oh, yeah, certainly the people are, they're definitely the issue. But how, so kind of like a nice metal park bench versus a wooden park bench, how long that survives, right? Right.
Just to clarify, I appreciate the shout out, but I'm not sure how much Mrs. Winters helps with the planning.
I was told that Gloria
She got
is
to-
very
Oh,
involved.
Gloria, okay, yes, Gloria, I thought you meant
Or, like I said, one suggestion somebody had was to just do wildflowers on both sides. Like there's a nice, right as the guardrails go up, nice area where they could do a really nice planting. And that couldn't be beat up, thrown in the river, smashed and have to be replaced. I know that some people really like the planters on the bridge, but is it also possible that I heard in discussion that state doesn't want the planters on the bridge?
It's our bridge, is it not?
It's our bridge. We own the
It's our
bridge.
bridge.
We're the ones that are
Yeah,
gonna
we
replace it and do it. It's our bridge.
certainly do own it.
Yep, it's our bridge.
Yes, we do.
And
No ifs, ands, or buts.
right, and again, from my understanding, Mrs. Kilburn is very, that's her pet project. That's her project, and, I don't see a reason to take it away from her.
No, it's not about that. It's just about how a lot of people put a lot of effort into it and it just keeps getting targeted.
I think it's a few individuals that are continually
certainly.
doing the same vandalist acts or nefarious acts, and
Yeah.
I think once they are aware, or really aware that people are onto them, that I think it will have a effect, I hope.
But like I said, if somebody could simply make a metal cage planter that was more
I think-
securely fastened to the handrail.
A metal planter would be difficult for Dean to place that line through,
The water.
the water line through. As it is, he has a hard enough time placing the water line through that he often ends up cutting his knuckles when he goes to run that through. So changing the structure of the box, or the hole in the box, then what's in the box, was a discussion that we had at the last beautification committee meeting, where he asked specifically of Marie, who owns Hudax, and Mrs. Kilburn to not change any of those aspects.
Any of the aspects as far as what, Susie?
Not to change the box, not to change the size of the box, not to change the hole on the side of the box, not to change what they put in the box for drainage, because it makes his job of running that line difficult.
And we just did that.
Right, and we need to think about, not only the beautification committee and what they're invested in, but what our public works guys are doing, and just not trying to make it harder for them to work side by side with the beautification committee.
I don't believe if you recreated the same size box, that is something that couldn't be vandalized as easy, would have any of those inhibitors.
I think if he's trying to feed a water line through a metal box, that might be difficult for him.
It doesn't go through the wind box, it goes up and over and in.
That wasn't the way that he explained it.
Yeah, it just looks up.
That
It's
wasn't.
a drip irrigation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, like I
Well,
said.
something you could address too, we could plan, you know, a couple years out to do some kind of major replacement.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, something that's more permanent, like I said, that
You
can't
can-
be
You can find a local
like
fabricator
a
that can probably do it,
concrete-filled mailbox that somebody can't beat up with a
like an H2O.
baseball
or
bat, but something that's rot-proof and resilient.
I think the flowers on the bridge is a conversation that we need to wait to have with Hank, because I
Agreed.
feel like we're hypothesizing, and he really needs to weigh in with his decision.
Yeah, really.
Sure,
So I'd like to table that.
that's good to talk about.
Well, it was just a discussion anyway.
I know, but I'd just like,
Yeah,
I'd like
this
to
is not a
table.
motion to.
I'd like to table that discussion.
You wanna
That's,
bring it to a
that's,
meeting?
is that not part of the
We can be here
Robert's
till
rules? I
midnight.
can table
Right,
that, I can
right.
table that discussion.
Yep. We can be here till midnight.
Until a future meeting.
There you go.
Any
Thank
more
you.
discussions
Future
about
meeting.
Marble Mill, blight, vandalism around the bridge in the park?
We'll make it a standing item in my updates as to progress that we're doing on there.
Oh, one more
Thank you,
thing.
I'll have
What
it.
about that was brought up, the resurfacing of the park, of the courts? When is that stated for this year, or slated for this year?
Oh, heck no.
Heck no.
There's no money for that in the budget.
Neil said you were being resurfaced this year?
If resurfacing means painting where the graffiti is and touching up lines, that's what we have in store for this year. So I'm not sure where that came from, but that's,
You mean
that is not
resurfacing
a-
the entire tennis court, pickleball court,
Painting them,
painting them?
yeah.
Paving.
Painting,
Oh, paving.
painting, painting. Not paving. Paving's actually fine. The ceiling and resurfacing of them and relining them. So
I
they
thought
look
we were just
aesthetically
gonna
pleasing.
repaint the lines and finish up the graffiti. If, now that there is graffiti.
Hmm.
That was my understanding.
I will follow up.
Yeah, but I think you're right, Bill. Okay. Next.
Next.
Ends the discussion
Yep.
for Marble Mill. Discussion of the 2024 Corn Fest and 5K run walk to be held on August 10th, 2024. I believe, is that you, Nicole? Nope.
That's me. Nick Michaud.
You are?
Nick Michaud, Athletic Director, Swanton Rec, Office of Facility Manager as well. We're planning to do Corn Fest again for 2024. We have it scheduled for August 10th. It's 3 to 7 this year, right at our campus. The setup will be the same as it was last year. We had a lot of great feedback for those folks that went to it. It got cut short due to rain. This is a rain or shine event. People are aware of that. So we had a really good turnout at the beginning of it, and then rain kind of squashed the party at the end of it. Otherwise, the food truck's really excited to be there. Almost everybody's coming back that came last year, so the lineup is all essentially the same. We've locked in a headlining band, the Stragglers. They're a local Franklin County band, as well as the MVU High School kiddos that played last year. They're in a rock band. They're going to open for them as well. Our great neighbors and partners are helping us dress up at the facility once again with corn. We're bringing in an antique trailer for the bands to play on. We're cutting the campus in half, just like last year, with a double fence barrier. And I'm here tonight because I'd like to request that we get the one-day liquor license for the event, just like we did last year, with assistance with village police officers on duty for the time that we're doing Corn Fest.
Have we approved the event itself? I don't think we did, right?
We're here for all of that right now.
Okay, perfect, okay. So I'll move that we approve the 2024 Corn Fest 5K run walk to be held on August 10th, 2024, and to approve the liquor license for the one day moving forward.
I can second the motion.
No, it's liquor permit.
Liquor permit.
Liquor permit.
Sorry.
The
my
town
bad.
does liquor licenses.
Liquor, yeah, I said liquor license, yeah.
Liquor
Liquor
permit.
permit
Has
My
the
bad.
town already done that for this event?
The vendor themselves would come
Yep.
to the event, but first we need to have permission from you folks that you will allow the sale of liquor or alcohol on your facility for that day.
So we're
That's
making a
why it's
motion for liquor license,
Permit,
Both.
both.
Both,
It's,
both items.
yes.
the motion that stands right now is to allow the Corn Fest Corn Fest and 5K Run Walk to happen with a liquor permit for one day.
Yep.
That's the motion as
That's
it
the
stands.
Okay. Motion accepted, granted. Any
Discussion?
yeas, nays,
Favor?
discussion?
No discussion?
No discussion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion accepted, granted.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So we'll just get
Easy
closer
peasy.
to the event, we'll get the liability insurance and the liquor permit and the fee, and we'll go.
Perfect, I will give it to you.
Easy peasy.
Pray for son.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Very well.
See ya.
Thank you.
Swanton Village, number 10, Swanton Village Fire Auxiliary Request Coin Drop for Saturday, June 22nd, 2024. Swanton Village Fire Department request for coin drop Saturday, August 17th, 2024.
So yes, we have the auxiliary one upstairs, June 22nd, with a rain date of June 29th, from 9 to 12. Same with the fire department, August 17th, with a rain date of August 24th.
I make the motion that we approve both these requests. Swanton Village Fire Auxiliary Request Coin Drop for Saturday, June 22nd, 2024, and Swanton Village Fire Department's request for coin drop on Saturday, August 7th.
Second?
Just further discussion?
None for me.
None for me.
Okay. All, motion accepted.
I do just want to make one statement with these coin drops. Whatever organization is holding the coin drop out front receives the funds for that coin drop. This village of Swanton does not collect any of those funds.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Vote on the motion.
Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Nay.
Okay.
So-
Motion granted,
2 to 1.
2 to 1.
Yep. Motion carries.
Motion carries. Number 11, Swan Village requests permission to close bank accounts and transfer funds into another account. Bill? Or is that Lynn?
Lynn, can I do that?
So, we use the US Bank for the electric, all of our bonds go through US Bank. The electric department, was holding some bonds directly outside of the bond bank years ago. And with that, we had to hold a returning contingency and a debt service reserve. The two of those accounts together are about 1.3 million currently. We also used to make our bond payment into bank accounts there on a monthly basis, given the size of those. That bond was paid off in December. We no longer need to have open all four accounts that we have there. What I would like to do is close the principal and interest accounts. Right now, as of the end of February, we had, the principal account had a little over $8,100 in it, and the interest account had, the interest account had a little over 18,000 in it. Obviously, it's still earning interest. And I'd like to close those and move it into one of the other accounts that we have there. Those are all invested in treasury, and so they're earning about 4.8% right now. Just to close out, we don't need those accounts anymore. And we'll just move it until we decide what we're gonna do with the debt service reserve and the, return to contingency fund, but, so I just need permission to close those two accounts.
And did you say these are electric?
These are all electric department funds.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that we approve the closure of the principal and interest accounts.
I'll second.
Motion, yea or nay, approved?
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Okay, great. Number 12, discussion on local option tax.
I asked for this to be on the agenda just to get the ball rolling.
Thank you.
I do know the town is going to want a joint legislative meeting with regards to the local option tax. And, you know, we just need to, I guess, make sure that we're all on the same page as to what we're looking for, you know, with this. And, you know, the town needs to do their homework to get specifics as to what the monies can be used for, because I guess it's specific. So we'll let the town do their homework, come to us, and then we can have dialogue back and forth and see where it goes.
And I believe we can get an update, because I watched the meeting and it was discussed at your last meeting.
It was, so if there are any questions or comments, concerns that you have right now, we're working with the folks that have all the answers to get all those answers. So if there are any questions, now's the time. I could take them down and refer them back to my team.
Is the town in favor of looking at and further pursuing local option tax like the village is?
I think it has to be a joint,
Yeah,
Agreed.
it has to be a joint thing. I don't think
Yep.
one entity can do it
without the other,
correct. I think it has to.
just the way the state mandates it, or collects it, deals with it.
If that is a question you would like me to ask, I can certainly do so.
Well, I imagine it would work a lot like the ticket funds and the other the ARPA funds did, where it would go to you guys and then it would be dispersed and used,
Yeah, based
I
on-
would think.
Based
Like,
on population.
I believe
it's-
or
Yeah.
something.
Track like
We're
zip
getting
code.
all of those answers. I
Yeah.
do believe it is based upon population, but for further clarification, we are getting the answers from the right people. So
Perfect.
if there are questions before that joint legislative meeting, I
We
would
can,
happily.
we
take
can
them.
email them to the town administrator.
Yes.
Okay,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
cool. That's all I had.
That's like that.
Could I make a, I think I'll let somebody
Okay, go ahead, Gordon.
Just my general comment on local option tax. You know, we have 6 stores. 3 maybe have them, 3 not, and I don't think that it really affects one way or another the business. I don't think someone comes in and says, you have a local options tax, or you don't, and it discourages someone from shopping maybe like it used to. But I will say that before you consider taxing customers that live in your town and village more, I would make sure you concentrate on filling your downtown and making it a vibrant downtown to shop. And that's all, I think, before you tax someone more to come to your community, you just want to make sure that your priority is to make it a vibrant, shoppable downtown.
Agreed. Yeah, and, I mean, I've had conversations with the town administrator, and, you know, one question I brought up to him was, you know, if we do this and this does pass, what's to say the state's not gonna increase the actual state tax again? You know, so right now it's 6%, we've added 7, now they're going to 10. I mean,
Well, it's
It
gonna be
just-
for everybody if they do that.
so,
But remember, if someone is buying something in a business that you're supporting in Swanton, and it's a riding lawnmower at
right,
Ace Hardware, and they go to Highgate, they can buy that same thing for 1%, and they're not taxed 1%.
Right.
So,
That's true.
yeah.
I just, I know the local option tax is a big buzzword now to get in and get more money, and I understand that, and I don't think it affects our business really, like from one store to another, but I just throw that out there.
It's the principle.
You can go other places and buy something and not pay an extra 1%.
Like a car.
Yeah,
However,
I don't know.
Uh,
What's
I can
that?
see one aspect of this that I don't pay attention to this sort of thing from time to time, I do. I learned that any sales through Amazon and other concerns like that come directly back to the community.
Yeah.
And I don't know how big that market is, but if you come to my house, it's huge.
Yeah, no.
Up and down the road, it's huge, so.
I see, Eugene, you make a good point, and it is significant from what I've had conversations with the folks in St. Albans, is the major part of the retail world is online now. And the only way that local communities can benefit from that is the local option tax.
But again, it's gonna go to the voters. It's gonna be up to the voters to decide.
Yes, but versus property taxes for paying for things all the time, I think this is a significant deal. And there is an enormous amount of traffic that passes through this community on a daily basis that isn't village and town.
That's true.
And they stop at McDonald's and they stop at the gas stations and all these places, and Dunkin' Donuts being the juggernaut of the business that it is. It doesn't stop anybody from making the lines that are a mile long in St. Albans, and it doesn't stop anybody from making the mile longs in all
Is
the
there
other
tax on
communities
food?
that have them. What's that, Gordon?
There is, and I think there's an option to add that to the meals tax as well. That's something that I think we would all have
There's
to
four, I
decide,
think,
whether it could
different
be for meals
options that you
tax,
can choose.
just on goods.
With the exception of clothing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, clothing and I think grocery store food, I think those are the exceptions. So they don't still tax grocery stores.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I think for the deli stuff, they do. The premium stuff is dinner tax. And
Yep.
So I think that does, part of it does generate revenue.
Just like the sales tax is.
Yes.
Yeah, again, I wanted to get it on our radar, and
Yeah,
so
a lot of people talk about it, so.
that's all I had.
So, discussion, I think we're up to, manager update. Bill, you're on.
I will keep this brief.
2 minutes.
No, that's at the set. I have
One
2 minutes
page,
here.
though.
Yeah.
It is one page. No, we talked about a lot already. So total eclipse, just an update. Last meeting, I said we were closing the office at noon. We are closing for the day based on everything that's happening
choice.
around us. With the exception, of course, fire department, police department, myself. This will become a staging area for fire department, police, and a new addition that I'll talk about in a minute. I just got a phone call today that's pretty cool. So we will be pre-staging, so there's been a series of meetings that we've all been involved in. And, excuse me, we will continue to have those meetings right up to the last minute, and it remains the same concern. Traffic, that's it, inundated with traffic, a real problem spot expected along 78 and exit 21, and really all areas of the interstate. The state police patrols are very clear, they're limited in staffing, and they're gonna be on the interstate, and that's it. So some of our local community partners have called them and said, what's the staffing gonna look like for our community? And it's pretty easy, 0, unless you have a critical incident. So for us, we will pre-stage much the same as St. Albans, and working in conjunction with the St. Albans Fire Department, Highgate Fire Department, pre-staging apparatus and personnel. So normally they're on call and they don't get paid until they're toned. We are essentially toning them in for this event, and they will be pre-staged from the morning until the evening. The chief is essentially almost ordering in the folks that he can to work this detail. Same thing, pre-staged. The chief, both chiefs will be in here with me. Got a really interesting call from Evan Robinson from Agency of Transportation. He is their drone program supervisor. They're operating a transportation information center, their TIC, where they're deploying drones throughout the state in anticipated problem areas. And it's a live feed from wherever the drone is to the TIC. And we have offered to host, and they want to highlight 78 and exit 21 in that area. So about a 30-minute airtime, it's gonna come back, have a recharge. It'll lift off from right here. But we then are privy to immediate real-time information from the air, which is
That's nice.
outstanding. And
Okay.
it really doesn't, for informational situational awareness, it does not get any better than that. So literally, we can hear a report of, it's backed up on the interstate in 5 miles. And you may deploy the drone, and 5 minutes later, it's more like 1.5 miles and it's flowing again. So you really can impact your resource deployment. So that's a good thing, and they'll be here in this room. Other than that,
Question?
yeah,
Just, are you done with the eclipse? I just had a question on the eclipse.
no.
What about cellular data services and data services, things like that? I'm hearing some of the carriers are gonna be bringing in portable
Yep.
satellites.
That's supposed to be true everywhere for this event. I remain skeptical,
You know,
but that is supposed to be the case.
And that is for just what, overloading of service?
Yes.
yep. And supposedly, from what I'm understanding, is these satellites are only for emergency use only. So it's very possible that we'll have no internet, no cell data,
It is
very
possible.
or very slow.
With the exception of those that are in the
Right,
program or
first
first responders,
Right,
that's what it's
exactly.
designed for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but someone like me who works from home, I'm just gonna shut down.
You probably are gonna be hosed that day, and
Yeah.
look, the numbers range statewide from 50,000 to, you hear 150, 200, nobody knows.
You can't
Nobody
tell.
definitively knows,
No, I don't.
and it's not the Grateful Dead, it's not Fish. You may see periodic delays with traffic and other nuisance type things, and let's hope that's all it is.
Mhm.
So at least, we will be staffed as well as we can, for that day and that event. Chief, anything else to add? You've been involved in the meetings.
No, just as you said, it's a true unknown.
Yeah.
It's not like any other civic event.
It's true.
That you have on a recurring basis, so
Yep.
we're gonna have to react to what we're presented with.
Yep.
But hopefully people are patient if they're stuck in traffic and don't get too aggravated.
Right. Well, they don't all have to go to one little spot for one event. They can see it across the whole area, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Any questions on the eclipse? Okay. Quick update on hydro. So unit 1 and 2 turbines have been down. As a reminder, those are our oldest, those are our babies, our 1 meg generation each. The part for unit 1 is a control ring, 3D modeling production, it's in production, we're just awaiting a delivery time. Unit 2, we repaired a thrust bearing, put it back online, and discovered that there's additional issues. The vendor shows up tomorrow to disassemble it, and this is where it'll start to get complicated. It's an aging unit, but it's a workhorse. If they tear it apart, they'll do a cost-benefit analysis and tell us what's broken, what the repair is. If it's catastrophic, then it's a bigger discussion on next steps. So do you increase size? Do you change anything in that formula? Remember, replacing a full turbine, we're talking now over $1 million.
And an adjustment to your FERC permit.
Correct.
If-
Well,
If you change the nameplate.
we wouldn't change the nameplate, we would just change the ability to, when unit 4 goes down, that's, bigger, we would be able to even out the production. But unless you change the pen stock, you can't change, so, yes.
So going to 2 or 3 megs versus just the 1 meg. Those are 2 single megs,
Yes,
those turbines.
Right,
Yes.
but if you go, my understanding is if we add nameplate capacity, you have to change your FERC permit.
right.
So if you go from 1 meg to 2,
Mhm.
that changes us from a 10.5 meg plant
Right.
to something greater. And we're already in the process of a FERC renewal, like
Right.
you aren't gonna get that unless
Right.
you get your permit renewed.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
it's
it's
beneficial
years-
just to play the
years down
permit
the
game
line.
and keep it as is and then worry about that later on, is that what you're saying?
Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, we're hoping they tear it apart and say it's another bearing and it's $40,000, and I'm making that up. I have no idea. Nothing in the turbine world is cheap.
Cheap.
And then you fix it, but again, not the optimal time, but not bad. So keep in mind, we are very close to entering run-of-river mode. So for us, that is at 001 hours on April 1st through May 31st at midnight. We are at the mercy of Mother Nature. So we can't pond, meaning we can't impact the level and peak production and draw down the pond in anticipation of an upstream event. We simply have to let it flow and produce what we produce.
That's for just a certain amount of time.
That is during walleye spawning, and it's for river ecology and the environmental impacts that
So
that have
for
been
a month?
determined.
Month or so?
No, it's more than a month, it's,
60 days.
it's 60, yeah,
It's
60
31
days.
60 days?
Yep,
Huh?
So it's 1 April to 31 May.
April 1 to May, the end of May,
Yep.
yep, at midnight.
Okay.
So, that
Continues
is
to
the
make the
time
street
where
stores.
if you have a unit down, that's when you want it to be down.
Yeah.
That or summer, when it's not, not
Traditionally
flowing.
peak flow anyway.
It's not a
Correct.
devastating.
We, right now, will get a full report soon, but we are
That's a
ahead of the game in terms of hydroelectric generation year-to-date over last year, which is a very good thing with 2 units down, so that's in a good place, right? We meet our demand plus putting money back out there that we get reimbursed for, is the most simplistic way to say it. When it rains, it pours, US dollars. It's a good thing.
Now,
Yes,
we
sir.
don't know what kind of flow we're gonna have. So let's say it's very low, and this is a question maybe for Lynn. Is VEPSA in a position to get us the power that we need if it is really low?
Yes, but you're gonna be on the market for it,
Yeah.
because they aren't gonna
So
secure us
wondering where-
contracts.
Yeah, where would it come from?
Purchase power.
Purchase,
Yeah.
yeah.
From
So,
our budget.
wherever they can
Yeah.
find us contracts. We do have in our budget, for the purchase power, I have them build in a bigger contingency than they normally do. Just because we could have a drought or we could have a really wet year.
Sure.
I'd rather have my budget a little heavier
Okay,
in case there is that drought year and we're not, remember, we've had years where we're $600,000 over budget in purchase power. I don't
Yeah.
like those years.
wonder why not?
Neither did we.
If it doesn't rain, you're
Yeah.
at the mercy of
Well,
the
that's,
system.
that's true.
Yes.
But would larger generators, in theory, in the future, help?
If you
With some of
have,
that.
well, if you have a drought, you're not gonna have
Right.
any more production.
Right.
Um,
Larger generators, even in high, it's the penstock, so it's the straw that's providing the water is only so large. Just having additional generation doesn't produce more power. It just allows you to differentiate and maybe, if a unit goes down, that unit can take up the slack. That's all it would do.
That's all it can do.
And the
Efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah, and then the other piece is a spring runoff or heavy rains. If your tail race gets too high, you can't generate because it's backing up into the penstock, or into the
Just too
unit.
much pressure.
I don't know,
Yeah.
10, 12 feet.
So there's like a fine line there
Oh, you'll
to
see
get the
it, right.
optimal generation.
For sure. Yeah. On the good news side, we're fully staffed and all new hires in both hydro and maintenance are on board and actively in training.
Good.
Yeah, it is good. Any other questions about hydro? Come on, Damon, I could talk all day.
Oh, no,
about
it's,
this
we-
it's good information.
Yeah, no, it's a
We,
fascinating
I'm also
subject.
trying
and
to
I
keep
love
you
it.
down.
set up a time to.
You do need to go on a tour, and then what we're talking about, as soon as you see it, you'll be like, penstock, okay, yeah, it's,
Right.
once you see it, so, yes, we'll set up a time.
Okay.
All right. Stormwater, so, it went out today, right? The stormwater RFP?
I posted it on Facebook
Yep.
tonight. I'm assuming Heidi gave them the go-ahead to get it out.
Yeah. So I'll just pass it out. It's very simple. So free, right, RFP, so free to ask. We're looking for bids on a stormwater solution as required by the state of Vermont, 3-acre rule for this complex right here, 121st Street. So again, we will react based upon those RFPs that get scored, opened after a sealed bid, and then determine next best steps. Here's what we know. We have several years to actually meet these requirements. Prices are not going down. So if we find a favorable price now, we will determine whether or not it's something that we can do this year or next calendar year, or if we have to delay even further. So that bid is out. Can we throw it on our website as well tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
How far out do we want to push Jones Court?
As
10
far as
years?
possible.
10 years?
No, 5. We have
up to 5.
correct.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry,
I'd like to
I'm
get,
lost on Jones Court.
so somehow, back in the 80s, we ended up as a village entity with the privilege of owning stormwater for that development.
Development,
Correct.
okay.
There's no homeowners association, we have worked with them. So, just a side note, the state of Vermont has come through with at least a $30,000 grant for each 3-acre rural property. So even for past expenditures, so we will get 30,000 for here, 30,000 for Jones Court. We've expended just in the early phase quite a bit of that already. So I'm gonna say that I don't have any idea what the solution will be for here, but it'll be in the tens of thousands. And the bigger the property, the more complex, and I think Jones Court will be complex, so.
Are we
The
talking
answer is,
retention or hooking to the storm drain system, or we
could
just
be,
don't know yet?
have no idea. So it's a true engineering analysis for both of those. So here it's Krebs and Lansing, and it is a different company for Jones Court, that we're a different vendor we're working with. So, great question, but we'll push that off as much as we can, and hopefully things, everybody's hoping for a statewide solution and some additional funding. We're blessed to only have 2. Just go down the road to St. Albans Town.
Can't
and
even
they're
imagine.
inundated with them.
Can't even imagine.
Yep. The police department, so the only update there, because you've heard a lot from the chief directly, is we have begun the advertisement process for the additional police officer and the additional administrative assistant. We'll let those run for a little while. We'll do interviews, the selection process, the background. It's onerous, in particular on the police department side. That takes some time. I wouldn't anticipate seeing an officer wearing the uniform for, I'm gonna go 90 days at the earliest, but I think it's gonna be more than that. He's just looking at me.
We have received multiple applications already for both positions.
So,
That's a good sign.
so, the difference maker is if you do get a full-time certified law enforcement officer that's been through the academy, that's been vetted, that's had a background check, had his polygraph, right, then that's a different story. Then you can expedite that and they go right into field training. So, fingers crossed, but that's a good sign. The last thing I have is a highway safety improvement grant that Heidi secured. And this is just, it's a couple pager to pass down. So this is work that we would have done anyway, so there's one handout, and I didn't want to waste color copies, so if you could just pass this one around. So this is a $35,000 grant, no match.
No.
We got 2 here.
So this is related to all of the different things that you see outlined on the second page. So we're talking a lot of street signs, barricades, delineator posts, paintings, road paint, signs, symbols, all that stuff. So this is work that we normally would have done anyway when it was in the budget. Just under $9,000 for the material, right? All the signs to purchase. We'll have to purchase that. We then will provide all of the labor to make that happen, that we would have done anyway. But instead of paying our people, we will get paid by the state of Vermont $26,000 in reimbursement that will go back into public works for other projects. So this is where you start when you're thinking about the budget, this will happen, and that's where you can start to talk about, well, it's easier to pay for the $600 for the paint for Marble Mill and the labor there, because
So we have some extra budget for Marble
this
Mill.
is a, take it easy. This is a double win, so it's it's the kind of example of, we had internally before all the expertise in the world, we just didn't have the capacity to just identify somebody, in this case Heidi, to just seek out grants and work projects.
Yeah.
And it's repeating itself throughout the organization, and again, it is a team effort, and she is working with everybody, but it's stuff like this that you would do anyway, that you're getting fully reimbursed with no match, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that's all I have until we get to executive session.
So, at the end, Bill's village manager report, I take it.
It is.
Any comments or questions? Number 14, more public comment. Anybody have any? All commented out?
We do have online still? Just one person? Okay. All right.
Number 15, any other business, necessary business?
I have a few things. So,
Excellent.
on March 11th, during the meeting, I misspoke about Highgate Town voting on their contract with MBR. There was no vote. They're still contracted until 2025, and I just wanted to alleviate any confusion I may have caused with my comment. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, in looking over at least the Swanton Fire Department handbook, I would like to revise the village employee and departmental handbooks to close some deficiencies that I've seen in the policies that open us up to some legal liabilities.
Excellent.
And then, last meeting, we discussed being in the ordinance addressing damages to sidewalks during construction, and there's nothing in the ordinances on that. So I don't know if that's something we want to table, but maybe address at a future meeting.
I talked to the zoning department, and I did talk to Public Works, and I guess there is a fee that they've been using. So they
Okay.
have something that they've been putting together, but as far as like
Yeah,
this official policy seems to still be a little bit.
It's coming from the planning office
Planning office says that they have nothing,
for the zoning ordinance.
and the zoning ordinance says they have nothing. Public Works here in the village says they've got something that they've been charging people for
Right, so I'm
damage
just
to
not wondering if
sidewalks.
it's something we shouldn't add to one of the ordinances. I don't know, maybe
Streets.
streets, parking, village police regulations, I'm not sure, but somewhere, find a spot for it, something we can discuss.
Zoning seem to agree that there
discuss
should be,
later.
and everybody seems to agree that there should be something to deal with.
Wonder if we should.
Wouldn't that be a clause in the contract? Somebody's a vendor, they're selected through an RFP process, they come in, they're the vendor to repair whatever. So are you talking about people that we hire in
No,
cause
no,
damage,
no,
or are you
no,
talking
no,
about
I'm talking
incidental damage?
incidental
We're talking about
damage.
incidental
Okay,
damage.
say I was
Gotcha.
having somebody come and like put a new porch on
Yep.
my house and they damaged the sidewalk in front of my house. Obviously, it's my responsibility to call Dean or you and say, hey, my guys who are working on my house messed up the sidewalk.
Yep.
Not everybody does that. I think there should be something somewhere, an ordinance of some sort that kind of addresses that.
Yeah.
That's all I'm stating. I don't know if maybe you guys don't find it necessary. I don't know.
No,
I'm
there
just-
I think it's a
are
good cover.
several private projects where the construction trucks have driven over the sidewalks that were never designed to be driven over, that just pulverizes the sidewalks and breaks them out.
There's some.
Especially on Spring Street, there's a lot of people who are really upset about one project that destroyed about probably 75 feet of sidewalk that was just replaced all maybe a decade ago. It was in really good shape.
It's probably good timing
There's two
if we're gonna
places
do
in
a
mind.
parking
Yeah.
Right, if we add it
ordinance,
together,
also
right?
to the sidewalk ordinance, and just to get the word out there so that residents know, if you are having some construction done and this happens, this is who you call, this is how you would handle it.
Address it, right.
So, the more you talk about it and mention it, when there's damages that occur, they will
Yeah.
call and report it.
So we already have some sidewalk ordinances in place on the Swanton parking ordinances. In that, it states like you can't drive on the sidewalk, so I'm wondering
You
if
could
that.
insert something there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we could insert something in that
Yeah.
area that states if you damage the sidewalk,
So we'll just put an update in that section
right,
and do the 45-day along with the parking. So do you wanna
make a
work
motion?
on it between now and our next meeting?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I think we need to research it and table it,
Right.
the legality. I'm not sure how you legally enforce an ordinance without, we don't wanna start a permitting process when somebody's
Correct.
doing work in the village, right? In case of incidental, that's really the way to protect it, because you would make them pay upfront and you would hold and retain that fee.
Right.
That's very onerous on our professionals out front who have enough to do. I just don't know how you make that ordinance legally enforceable if a vendor does that, doesn't know about it, and doesn't sign something in advance.
Like I said, the most logical thing is to attach it to something with zoning. So if you apply for a building project or a building permit.
And but zoning lives in.
But it's
You'd
got
have to agree,
zones.
Zoning would have to live in the town, and that additional responsibility would be there. Yeah, I just think it's got multiple layers.
It does.
Well, the
No, it
village
does. It was
pays
just
for
something-
zoning,
You can research it.
so.
Yeah, we just gotta
yeah.
research it.
So for whatever zone in the village, because we have the residential districts and we have the
Well,
rural
zoning is
districts.
village
and
and town, not just
Village is
town.
zoning in
That's
town, it's
right.
not
Yeah,
just
yeah,
town.
Yeah,
So it would just simply trigger something in the village that you just simply say, your large project causes public damage. You just
I
have to
would
deal with
think that the town would wanna protect themselves in this,
Well, if it is a true zoning issue, then they are in the midst of a zoning bylaw rewrite.
Correct.
So now is the time to have the discussion within the district of the village, if there are any additional things that you'd like them to have for consideration. Might I suggest a planning commission meeting to discuss those things, if it is a true zoning thing. I do just, playing a little bit of devil's advocate is do you have the capacity to enforce
Right.
an
Right.
ordinance? And that we're all very stretched thin, to be
Yeah, right.
very honest.
Yeah.
So it's, if that is the way you decide. to
I
go.
recommend the recreation department be the enforcement arm.
You know.
Well, I
Yeah.
wonder, is it possible to reach out to our neighbors to see if they address this situation?
Other
In
towns?
any, other
Yeah.
towns. Does Highgate address, does Alberg address this,
Check with
does the
Salem.
St. Albans City address this?
Yeah.
We
Or
can,
Ginsburg
but,
and Ginsburg
but that's
Falls.
circumventing our partner. The first ask must be, unless we wanna do this independently, and we do not, because we don't have a
No,
zoning.
we don't, I mean, we
arm.
definitely need
We
to
want to,
discuss it.
it's gotta be with the town, and I think it's
We can bring it
legitimate.
up at our next joint meeting.
We could,
Well, once again, zoning is town and village.
right, it is,
So-
but
And do we know how many incidents where this has occurred?
It was just something brought up. I don't think
Yeah.
it's been a lot. It was
Not
just
many.
something that was brought up and I was just,
For future, for
just
protection?
bringing it up to see where everybody stood. That, it was brought up at the last meeting. It was said that there was an ordinance. I'm just merely stating that that was not the fact.
Yeah.
And is it something we want to address? And if we don't want to address it, hey, that's fine. I'm just kind of trying to close the loop on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Dean said we have a very limited sidewalk replacement annual budget.
Well, that's true.
Extremely small.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you could collect these funds from these folks and apply it to replacing the destroyed sidewalks versus everybody having to pay for somebody's thing that they've already paid for, it does make a lot of sense.
And maybe an ordinance is enough, because I think generally, most viable businesses that are reputable will want to make good on that, if they wanna continue to do business.
Yeah,
Correct. And then my last thing is, I was informed that there was a Argo purchased by the fire department, and I didn't remember seeing that in a warrant, so it must have been before my.
That's because it wasn't purchased by the fire department.
An
Okay.
auger,
It was
No,
donated.
an Argo.
Yeah.
Argo,
ARGO. It's next
Yeah.
door after if you wanna tour it. That was purchased through Star Hose, 50% TDI donation.
Okay.
So free.
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 Free, but with a massive increase in the capabilities of the organization. Rail trail in particular, ice water rescue, it goes in water and on land, it's pretty cool. So, they're not trained up on it yet, they have to do that.
Yep.
Okay. That ends it for me. Thank you.
My only thing was just, we're putting out the Memorial Day Parade again this year. Monday, May Memorial Day, whichever day that may be.
5/27.
5/27.
Let's get it right this year, Adam. Remember last year, how many times we got it
So
wrong?
embarrassing. Had 3 different dates on 3 different pieces of paper. But yes, Monday, May 27th, we'll start at 2 again. And looking for folks who are interested in helping with the parade, interested in putting floats in the parade, being in the parade. So you can reach out to myself or Joel Clark, and one of us will be more than happy to talk to you folks about it.
We do have a meeting scheduled for that night, but we will reschedule. We'll visit it when we get closer to that time period to see if we even need to have a meeting.
Yep.
We could just cancel altogether or reschedule.
Okay.
She's thinking ahead.
That's all I have, thank you.
That ends any other business, and I think this ends the public meeting, right?
Public
So,
portion.
Public portion of this meeting,
Uh,
and we're going to,
I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, personnel issues or premature general public knowledge of such matter will place the village or the person involved at substantial disadvantage, and I think that's all for my motion.
Thank you, have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Nicole, thank you.
Good night.
I'll second it. Did anybody second it? I did.
You did.
Thank you.
That's all you did.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Makes it official. yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries.
Now, for the